Welcome to the Agency Bud podcast. On the show, we talk to CEOs and founders, agency owners and business people about the challenges they've overcome and the steps they've taken to get to where they are. You can follow along at podcast.agencybud.com. On the show, we're going to be talking to somebody amazing. We're going to introduce that person in just a second. Don't forget to check out agencybud.com. Add in our software to your business and increase your recurring revenue with agencybud.com. Let's go and meet today's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on the show today, I have one of the most stylish men I've ever had the privilege of interviewing. He's funny, he's dynamic, he's a worldwide speaker, he's an authority on blockchain, he's an authority on social media and strategy and branding. He's a lecturer, he's been featured in so many publications, he's famous all the way through Switzerland. He is joining me from Zurich. It is my great pleasure to interview and to introduce you to our good friend Ramirez. Roman, thank you so much for joining me, amigo.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Great to see you.
Having me. Thank you.
Now, before I clicked on record, I complimented you. You have an incredible website there, which is therelevancehouse.com. This is a fundamentally a marketing agency that's been and PR that's been founded and really focused on the blockchain sort of niche, the vertical there within that blockchain technology. And you've built an incredible following and dynamic kind of move forward in that space. How did the Relevance House get started for you?
Actually, our journey in the blockchain space started many years before. I personally have always been an absolute passionate, curious person about emerging technologies, which drove me to start with internet and e-commerce in the middle of the 90s before even Google was founded. And so I've always been fascinated by technology and new trends in technology. And as such, in 2013, I was one of the co-founders of one of the first blockchain startups in Switzerland. And it was far too early. The market wasn't really ready, so that company didn't fly. But ever since, I've been working with my co-founder in the space and in the field. She was very heavily involved already. And then all of a sudden, one day to 16, mostly to 17, blockchain started becoming a topic in everyone's mouth, in everyone's mind, and in a whole the craze around cryptocurrencies, etc., started popping up. And a lot of companies started developing very interesting and promising concepts. And what happened is we realized there was barely any substance in terms of technologically, yes, but in terms of building businesses, building brands, and communicating a proper story, and so on. It wasn't really there. These companies were making noise rather than building, sustainable, relevant brands, and that's what gave birth to the Relevance House. We decided that for this industry to become, for this market to become successful globally, for this technology to be broadly adopted, it does require a lot of education, sustainable brand building, storytelling, and cut a little bit away the whole technical mumble jumble, and explain concepts in a way that are easy to grasp, easy to understand, and basically make this technology relevant to the world. And that's how it all started, basically.
So your background, I mean, looking through, you started in 2012 with digital and social media strategy consulting and coaching with Spark and Strategy. You were one of the co-founders there. So you've taken a marketing know-how, like a real passion for branding and storytelling, and now moving it into that blockchain technology, which I can totally see. As I wind back through, you've got some incredible history there. So you've lectured, you've been more, been a lecturer on digital strategy, you've been a lecturer on social media, you've been an entrepreneurialism and branding. How did that kind of passion for starting something, for getting it off the ground and for telling that story and growing it into a company, how did that get into your psyche?
It started from the very beginning. Actually, what I've always had is an incredible amount of curiosity. If you want to really boil it down to something, it's curiosity. If everybody is going in one direction and there is another direction to go, that's one I will try. I might be much more likely to fail through it, but failure is a great source of learning. And I can just not prevent it. I really can not try things out. Basically, that curiosity drove me, as mentioned earlier, in 1995, 96, to discover the internet. Well, I didn't discover it; I discovered it for myself. As such, I started building things. I built, to my knowledge, the first e-commerce project of a Fortune 500 worldwide. And having started that early, I was talking to people about how I saw this technology changing the world. Again, this was before Google was founded, and people didn't understand. So because of that, because of my conviction about how technology was going to change the world, I had to somehow develop an ability to translate very complicated technological concepts into stories that people understand, can relate to, because otherwise nobody was going to buy into anything of what I was trying to do. So I believe curiosity drove to pioneering or trying things out. And in order for that to get any traction with anybody, I had to develop an ability to tell stories so that it would sound interesting.
Fantastic. So now as we move into Relevance House, and I just want to focus on that just for a moment. You have an incredible agency there, and you're the Chief Relevance Officer. Obviously, you have your co-founder there as well. You've built an amazing team, and now your role is to take emerging companies and tell their stories, build them into successful brands, developing their campaigns and developing their marketing. When you're putting these strategies together for companies, obviously you're drawing on your own experience of that curiosity and having to tell those stories. How do you convey that to a startup founder, a genius, a blockchain developer who's created something amazing, and now you have to tell them the real truth about getting their story out into the marketplace? How do you work with your clients and help them understand the message that they have to get across?
You're just pointing the finger on probably one of the most challenging aspects of our work. We work with companies that are very disruptive, very innovative, but most of the time, indeed, heavily technically or technologically driven. And these founders have a lot of experience on their technology, on their market, but very seldom you find people with true experience in brand building and in marketing. And that's okay, because that's what we do, right? However, the importance of marketing, branding, storytelling, and doing it right is oftentimes underestimated. I usually say that getting a tech company founder to take decisions about marketing is like sending a beer drinker to buy a bottle of wine. If you really have no idea, you're going to be struggling. It's all going to look the same. And the difference between a good wine and bad wine is usually not the size of the bottle or the design of the label. It's really understanding about it. And that's a key challenge. Now, what we do most of the time is we sit down and explain to them what the importance is, or what the difference is between building a product and creating a brand. Because you, as a technology founder, you are developing a product or a service based on technology. But consumers or your target group, whoever that is, doesn't buy products or services. You buy a story. You buy a brand. When I buy a shampoo, I'm not buying 10 sides diluted with alcohol and some provitamin B5 that will make it more combable. I'm buying shine. I'm buying volume. I'm buying beauty. I'm buying self-confidence. That's the difference between a story and a product, a brand and a service. And that's what you try to get across. So far, we seem to be finding ways to get that message over. And people understand then that there is importance in marketing. Sooner or later, they end up coming to that conclusion.
Absolutely. So, Roman, you have incredible, talented people with you in the team at the Relevance House. I was looking through some of the stories there of the people. How did you assemble the group that is the Relevance House now?
Mostly through our own network, through people that we met, and something that we are extremely proud about, and we put a lot of importance behind, is, first of all, while we do work with freelancers here and there, we wanted to build a team that is in-house, that meet every day. In that sense, we are almost old-fashioned. especially working in an industry that praises decentralization, which I also believe in. We are sitting together in a team, in a room. We are brainstorming together. We work together every day. Of course, we were in lockdown during Corona, but in general, that gives building a culture, building a team delivers an absolutely different output in terms of quality, and having people that wanted to be part of that journey was very important. Everyone in our team does have an incredible passion for technology, for disruption, for innovation. And something that we also, that was very important for us was also to make sure we had a huge diversity. So we have basically all ages, and of course all genders and directions. We have in our team we have 8 different nationalities, and it's just a team of 9 people.
Wow.
Diversity is extremely important, and not only diversity in terms of gender, but diversity in terms of origin, of backgrounds, of ages, and everything.
Nice.
So that's important too.
And I noticed that you're hiring at the moment. You're looking for, to grow that team, or is that an always state of affairs? Are you always hiring for the right person, or is it just right now that you're expanding?
We are always hiring, and actually we believe or we try to work with what we call a talent pipeline. Based on the speed with which our business moves, sometimes it might take forever for a project to decide to engage with us, and they might not even engage with us at all after a while. But it's not rare that someone would come to the door and say, we've heard great things about you, or we've seen what you guys have done with this or that project, and would like to work with you. The thing is, we're starting our fundraising campaign in 4 weeks, or we are launching our beta product in a month, or actually we did so yesterday, and we simply forgot that thing called marketing. Could you please? So
do you get that a lot?
Really
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I would imagine that in your industry, do you get that a lot? That would happen frequently. Like, oh, we need a pitch deck. Like we're meeting with investors tomorrow.
Absolutely. And the best time to start properly with brand building, with marketing, is actually at the inception of the company. But very few people do that from the very beginning. And sometimes, or companies oftentimes believe, and this is, I'm not a coder, so I wouldn't be able to judge if code is good or not. But these people are not brand builders, and therefore they cannot judge necessarily. So you would think, oh, all right, we got it all together, right? We just now we want to start a campaign. So could you prepare a press release and make an announcement? We're going live in 2 weeks. It's like usually to do it right, it would take, and this is a true story. In order to really do it right, if you want to prepare properly, you're probably going to need somewhere around 3 months. That is a perfect timing where you can get all your ducks in a row. We can dissect your brand, find the positioning, create the story. Eventually, we've sometimes even changed the name of companies because they would not fit with the story that we're trying to put together. And so, yeah, you give us 3 months, and there is nothing we cannot put together. You give us 3 weeks, and it's going to be a challenge. You give us 3 days, we can only do as exactly. So yeah. It's these kind of things have happened where we've had the press conference was announced already, or the product launch was announced already, but someone simply forgot to book a room and invite, and get the food together. So nice. Yeah, that happens a lot.
I would imagine so. And in that dynamic industry that you were in with the blockchain startups and people coming through in that space, that's so fast. It's such as we said, a high tech industry. Do you take on board every client that walks through your doors with an amazing idea? How many times do you hear the pitch and say, yeah, come back to me when you're serious, versus, wow, this is going to change the world. Let's do something together.
Quantifying that would be literally out of my butt. Sorry for that. But yeah, probably in 80% of all projects, or in 80% of all cases, people are not really ready.
Yeah.
Most of the time, when they think they're ready, they are not.
Yeah.
So actually, we turned down and looked into more projects, and that we end up turning down eventually or not working with than not. And it has also to do with the fact that in order to be able to have that quality of talent in our company, and we're talking about Switzerland, which is not famous for being a cheap labor market, to say the least. And that's in order to be able to work with companies that are tight on funding, in a hurry, and still maintain a huge level of quality and experience in the team. We are usually investors in the projects that we are working with. So we have skin in the game.
Fantastic.
That basically means if the project doesn't work, we might even lose money or not make money. And therefore, we are not an agency that you pay by the hour. We are a strategic partner. And if we don't believe in the project, we are not going to put our time behind it because we might end up losing money. So
Fantastic.
if I wouldn't invest in your company, I'm not going to work with you.
Nice. Wow. I was going to ask that's a fascinating thought, because I've talked to so many amazing agency owners and entrepreneurs in similar positions to yourself. And one of the rules that they always have is work with the clients that can afford to pay for the service, right? Like, I mean, that makes sense. And a lot of the startups that are coming through your doors have, they're pre-round, they're pre-raise, that they're working with an idea and just skeleton thoughts and ideas. So my question was going to be, are you then contacting or connecting them with an investment network as well as creating their story? But you're also forming a part of that investment network. So you're really making sure that these guys are getting off the ground with the best possible team behind them.
That is true. That is indeed true.
Fantastic.
I don't think that anybody should be, or companies that basically charge you by the hour, whether or by the day or whatever it works, by project, and whether what it is they do works or not, I believe will basically stop existing at some point in the future. One of the challenges that I've always seen behind marketing, and this is Henry Ford, and we're talking about Henry Ford, right? This is quite a while ago. He said, I know that I'm throwing away 50% of my marketing budget, but I don't know which 50%. That I believe is unacceptable.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in what it is you're doing, if you're not creating an impact, then you shouldn't be making money on it.
Yeah, right.
And that is our philosophy, and that is not very typical, or actually relatively unique. But that's also the only way that you can work with these companies.
Yeah.
If you really have absolutely no budget, nothing, then you might struggle to get anything done, because one thing is to not be able to launch a campaign or not. If you have absolutely nothing, not even friends or family or seed or anything, then you probably. Yeah, you're going to struggle. You are going to struggle. But yes, there is a sweet spot.
I understand completely. So can I rewind a little bit? You started the Relevance House in 2018. And tell me about that first few months of being in operation. Obviously, you've come from being with Spark and Strategy. Like, you had that already existing. And then the Relevance House was something new that you created. Tell me about that startup, that first kind of 90 days. How did it all go? Was it difficult? Was it easy? Did you have clients falling over you, or did you have to go hunting for them?
Actually, we started the company officially in 2018, but we had been working in this space actually under the Relevance House as a project for almost a year by then.
Nice, okay.
So my former company, Spark and Strategy, which still exists, remained or was kind of the harbor under which we created the concept of the Relevance House. We wanted to qualify whether our service offering, our methodologies, and everything we developed, our blueprints and so on, whether they had a market, whether they were unique, whether there was an interesting for them or not. So before we actually started hiring our people and started, officially creating the company, we had been already operational for nearly a year under just a project name, the Relevance House. The story existed, but we wanted to make sure that it worked. This is what startups do themselves all the time. You do an MVP, you do a beta test, you first have a closed user group with which you qualify whether your software is buggy or whether your solution is relevant or not, and then you go out. So we did exactly the same. And by the time we actually, opened offices, officially created the company as an incorporation, and started hiring our people, we already had clients, we already had validated our tools, found that our approach and blueprints and frameworks were quite unique and highly, needed. And so from there on, of course, it's been a bumpy road. Whoever tells the opposite is a liar, or has inherited a ton. But because building something is always a bumpy road from scratch. But we were already on a runway.
Nice. So this is a great story to create that kind of framework, as you said, within the Spark and Strategy group, and then see that it's working, see that there's a need, and then go full out into it. Herman, I noticed that you describe yourself as a serial entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Somebody that starts something, you just have a passion for doing that from the ground up, from getting started. And I also notice when I look at your site, your personal site, which is herman-ramirez.com, you are prolific in your talking on stage. You have rooms full of people talking to them about branding, marketing, strategy, and entrepreneurialism. What is it about being an entrepreneur that lights the fire for you?
I wouldn't be able to not want to challenge the status quo. This is something that a lot of people know it out there. You never really fit it into any drawer when you were a kid. Teachers used to hate you because you were asking one too many questions, rather than just, nodding and learning whatever it is they were telling you. There are a type of people out there that like to build things, like to challenge the status quo. Rules are there not to be obeyed, but to be questioned and eventually obeyed or changed. If you have that kind of mentality, you can't do anything different than building stuff. And entrepreneurship is not a matter of whether you are self-employed or not, because I've considered myself an entrepreneur even when I have worked for large corporations. Mm-hmm. Now there is a word for that. Back in the day, I used to be a pain in the ass or a rebel. Today you're called intrapreneur. It's so cool that now there is a word for everything that was difficult to explain back in the day. So it's more a mentality. It's a question of mindset. It's not a question of under what legal compound are you operating? A lot of people out there, and most entrepreneurs that I know, experience that. They know it's a bumpy road, but they kind of cannot not try to change the world. Absolutely. In a way, even if it's a small little tiny thing, or it might be gigantically, but that's something it's kind of in your thinking.
I agree with you completely. So what do you love to talk to a room full of people about? You have an opportunity with, let's say, a group of students who are finishing their university studies. It's their final period in that environment. They're about to go out into what we like to call the real world and make a difference and do all that kind of thing. You have an opportunity to stand on stage and talk to that group. What would you love to chat to those people about?
Wow. First of all, or probably all the mistakes that you can do. Probably I would sit in front of them and tell them about my many failures. I think that's what they could benefit from the most. People love to talk about their successes, but about failures tend to be the better lessons drivers. So that's something actually in the University of St. Gallen, which is a kind of quite highly regarded university here in Switzerland. I've done a couple of sessions there about entrepreneurial fuck-ups. And actually, I call it like that because that's exactly how it feels. And sorry for my language.
No,
but
we've got an explicit rating on the podcast. We've been clean all these years.
perfect. Oh, you should have told me beforehand.
No.
I've been trying to hold-
When you're interviewing entrepreneurs, to keep it as a clean podcast, it's never going to happen.
I usually open my keynote saying that I apologize for using bad language and that there is a study from MIT that proves that people who use bad language are more trustworthy. So
Go with that.
anyway. So entrepreneurial fuck ups. I think that is all the mistakes that you can make and breaking a number of myths. There are incredibly many misconceptions and myths out there in the world. And I would basically invite everyone to challenge always and question always everything, and basically share with them your mistakes and your failures, because that's what people can learn most of.
I love it. One of the things that intrigued me, and I'm glad we've kind of circled back to it, was within the first 5 minutes of our call today, you mentioned the failures, and that was part of the molding process that brought you to where you are. And now we've come back full circle in the opportunity to speak about those. Tell me, Herman, so I can tap into the wisdom. I mean, this is selfish for me. Being able to sit with you for a little bit is amazing. What's the biggest mistake that you've made, and what did you learn from it, and that you can share?
The mistake with probably the biggest implication was spending money I didn't have.
Tell me about that.
This was we're talking. I'm a very old person. In the middle of the new economy. I joined as employee number 2. I joined a startup back in the day in Germany that basically ended up with 450 employees within less than 12 months. People talk about the crazy times of crypto. This was the really, really crazy times of the new economy. I was so absolutely convinced about the success of that company that was going to be that, and totally disregarded the fact that it wasn't in my hands purely because I might believe in the success of the company, but actually the ultimate financial return will come if the stock market, approves of it. And I borrowed money to buy more shares of my company. That was greed. Yeah. That was a mistake. Greed is a terrible, terrible companion. So I borrowed money I didn't have to buy shares of the or more shares than the ones I was given as an employee, out of the pure conviction that it was going to fly. I can only say in my excuse that I was young, I was naive, but that was a very, very ugly mistake. What happened afterwards is the Nasdaq collapsed before my lockup period was over, so I couldn't sell the shares of the company, and I should have never done that. And basically, took me years to recover from it.
Yep.
And financially, and I was a freaking kid. Why, I still don't know why a bank would borrow that amount of money to a kid with nothing to show for other than the pretty face. But yeah, it's
the pretty face, Herman. That was completely what they were relying on. So what do you take from that? You see founders coming through your doors all the time. You see startups. You see young people with incredible spark in their eyes coming to you, talking to you about the next thing that's going to happen. How do you take the lesson from your experience and relate it to them in a way that can be constructive, that they can grow with that they don't extend themselves into that trouble space, and yet still fuel that enthusiasm for growth? How do you balance that?
Actually, fueling the enthusiasm for growth usually is not the challenge. And despite it is very much in my name, I'm a very passionate person.
I hadn't noticed.
Actually, having to be the party pooper and trying to get them down is a much more important. That's the responsible thing to do. So I tend to be very critical, very straight, very direct with founders when we sit together with them. And first of all, I practice a lot as a jury member in different startup competitions and whatever. And one of the things I tell to most of them is, your project is going to fail. I can dwell into details, but please promise me that you're not going to pursue it. Get yourself a proper job or find yourself another idea, because you're going to burn through all your money, all your savings, or your daddies, and that's not going to go anywhere. And I have no doubt about it.
Have you been proven wrong? Like, I'm sure in that environment, you've been proven right many, many, many times. Have you been proven wrong?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
Good record.
But actually, it's this is an easy bet to make, because you have a 90% probability to succeed on your bet anyways.
Nice.
That's pretty much,
That's pretty good.
A 90%. It's a 90% failure rate with startups within 18 months. So it's an easy statement to make. It's much more difficult to actually make it through. Very oftentimes, what people think is that the idea or the technology or the solution will be the driver for success. They are a precondition for success, but the true driver for success usually has to do with many other factors, like having the right advisors, having the right partners, having the right team members, having the right timing for markets. My very first company in the year 2000 is the grandfather of WhatsApp.
Wow.
We developed, to my knowledge, the first SMS chat in the world back in the day. But it was too early. The market wasn't ready. My first blockchain company, as was mentioned earlier, 2013, was also too early. So the timing might be the right thing. So it might be a matter of timing, might be a matter. It's usually never a matter of, is it a good idea or not? And is it well technologically executed or not? There are so many other factors that would play a role, but people used to focus purely on those. You're basically bringing in all the different aspects and trying to bring them down to the ground and explain to them whatever it is. You think you're going to be raising funding. We hear this a lot. Oh, we're going to start a fundraising round, and we expect to raise $1.5 million in the next 3 to 6 months. It's like, no, you're not.
There's a reality.
If you already have your investor pack, you got an amazing investor deck, an amazing one pager, all the financial plans and all, it's all been validated, it's all looking peachy. You already have a list of investors that you can start reaching out tomorrow, and a number of conferences you've already booked to be on stage for. Then maybe yes. But what you're telling me is that you want us to help you develop that, which we can, and still want to raise fund. No. It's going to take you 3 months to be ready to start talking to investors. It's going to take you another 6 months eventually to actually, not to speak to them, but to get it into your bank account. You're not going to have $1.5 million in 3 months. It's just not going to happen.
So make sure you've got a good stock of biscuits and beans in the cupboard, because
Exactly.
it's going to be a journey. So Herman, can I ask you, one of the things that I love talking to you here is that you have that connection with startups and that amazing energy that comes from that environment. But a lot of people across the world, a lot of our listeners, and I mean this with the best of greatest respects, have boring businesses, me included, but this boring business, right? So this is like somebody that just, they're not working for a job. They just run their own business. This could be a chiropractor, a dentist, a marketing agency, but somebody that works for themselves. They have a team of people. What would you say to that person about succeeding in the space that they're at? We're not talking about raising a seed round and competing with Uber, or getting cryptocurrency off the ground that's going to blow through $1 trillion valuation. We're talking about a business owner, 3, 4, 5 staff, somebody that wants to grow to 10 and create something for themselves and their family. What are the success principles in that environment? It's slightly different from the startup world.
Not everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't fit everyone's personalities. And actually, the pursuit for happiness has much more to do than with pure financial rewards or having had something or a legacy to do. Actually, something that I like to pretty much tell anybody is, try to get to know yourself truly. Try to understand what it is that truly makes you happy. And there are many ways how happiness can be achieved and shared. It doesn't have to be by, having a road named after you, or appearing on Forbes, or having a yacht or whatever. And actually, at least a lot of studies prove that the correlation between that and happiness isn't really existing.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't, if you want to make the world a better place, try starting with making your life a better place. And try to discover what it is that makes you happy and pursue that. And if it does imply building something, changing something, breaking something, challenging something, then please go ahead and then, do so in the right way. But don't get hung on the values of others. Try to first understand what it is that drives you and makes you happy.
Amazing.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I came across that, purely from a personal circumstance. It took a tragedy. It took a quiet moment of reflection to really find out who I was, and that's enabled me to be a very happy, life-driven person, which is amazing. Let me see if I can ask this the right way. Is there a formula that you would say to somebody who is struggling to find their relevance in this place? To say, look, this is how you will best be able to find your path. Is there something that you know from your wisdom, or is it just a matter of everybody kind of finds their place in the end?
I have no wisdom. No, spend more time with yourself. That's no, I really don't. Spend more time with yourself. Speak to people who know you, who love you, and listen. Find your own way. Basically, that's spend time with yourself. Spend time thinking. We are crazy, running around like chicken without heads very oftentimes. No, spend time with yourself and reflect upon yourself and listen to others.
I love it. So I noticed, and for anybody that's watching this on the show, you notice that when Germán is talking about the startup and the buzz, the energy is massive. When we're talking about finding that true path, you've dropped down. So I want to turn that dial back up just before we conclude, my friend. As you're looking at blockchain right now, you're looking at this incredible disruptive technology. What are some of the big ways that you feel that this still has to expand into what we call everyday life?
Wow, many. Education, on the one side, education, but on the one side, regulation on the other side, in terms of harmonizing regulation. But the most important thing, to be honest, finding true use cases that are meaningful.
Yep.
And that basically provide value. Just because something is possible, it doesn't mean it makes sense. But just because, not everything that makes sense is possible, but just because it's possible to build something on the blockchain, it doesn't necessarily mean that it makes sense. And if you go like, oh, this is like Uber, but on the blockchain, it's like, what's wrong with Uber? So, what is the point?
Yeah.
Nobody knows, or very few people know how an algorithm works. Many people might not even know how it's correctly spelled, but every freaking body uses Google.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I have no idea how a car works. I open the motor lid and I go, okay, it's all there.
Looks good to me.
As long as you can start it and you go from A to B. It's not how the technology works or what the technology is capable of, but it's really about why does it make sense? Or a question that I ask very often to startups when I do branding workshops and so on. And sorry for my French. Why does the world need your shit?
Yep.
If you're not able to answer that question, it's like why does the world need your shit? If you're not able to answer that question, then don't even bother.
Yeah,
that is something that requires ingenuity, it requires patience, and not everything that's possible with technology makes sense. And the moment we start using the blockchain, embed it into our lives, and it's starting adding meaningful value and impact to our lives in whatever type, whether it's financial or supply chains or real estate or whatever, then it's going to be successful. That is what we still have ahead of us.
Nice, cool. Germán Ramirez, the founder and the leader of the Relevance House. He is an incredible speaker worldwide.
I'm one of two. I'm one of two.
We have to give credit where it's due. We have to absolutely give credit where it's due. The co-founder of the Relevance House, driving technology through storytelling, concentrating on the blockchain and the emerging technologies. Of course, one of the founders of Spark and Strategy as well. Herman, I have absolutely loved spending this time with you. Just before we wrap up, what's next for you? What do you see on the horizon for you personally, for the Relevance House? Where is that story going for you? What's the next chapter?
To be honest, continuing to learn and continuing to learn and to grow as an entrepreneur, as a person, as a citizen, as a human being. And there is still an incredible learning curve, and that's what really drives me. The day I stop learning, I will have to find something else. But I'm learning every day and loving that.
Fantastic. Is there a way that people can follow along with what you're doing? Do you have a preferred medium for what you're learning and sharing with the world?
I'm pretty much everywhere. So
I'll make sure the links are with the podcast. So I know we've got your website there. I'll make sure that we've got your social links as well. People can follow along, because I think your insight, your energy in that space, I think is something that is really infectious. And I love the fact that you're driving that forward. So we're going to make sure that people can carry that way forward with you and keep in touch with you as they go along too.
Thank you very much,
man. Thank you so much for your time. You're an absolute legend. I've loved it. I wish you all the very best, and I look forward to keeping up with the story, man.
Thank you, man. Stay in touch.
Cheers.
Stay healthy. Don't forget to wash your hands.
Absolutely. Thanks, buddy.
All right.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. Thanks.